to the Bog and Smog Fantasy Cast. I am your host, the Boggle One, and I am joined by Cole today, and we are clear skies. It is smogless. No Phil here today, but we're gonna have a great time. Cole, the week is upon us. Football tomorrow. How are you feeling about it? Is that just euphoria I'm seeing in your eyes?
I feel like the moment the Super Bowl ended, there's been something going on, something wrong, something eerie. All the remedy is coming in the next 24 hours. Actually, the kickoff to the NFL season. Here we go, boy. Woo! I can't even talk. I literally I'm shaking. I'm so happy right now.
A little jittery, I know.
Yeah.
It is a very exciting time of year, especially after we just had our draft last week, to get ourselves very excited with those new rookies joining our squad. And everybody now knows what their team is going to look like going into the year. And with that being said, let's look at what this show is going to look like today. And this is probably be kind of a similar layout to how we'll probably kind of run through it throughout the season, because it's upon us. We're getting into the weeks. This is what we're going to be ripping through. So today we're going to look at the waiver wire, see how everybody's been making moves, trying to make their teams a little bit better. And then once every few weeks, we're going to get into some power rankings, but we got to do it at the start of the season so we can see how very wrong we are come the end of the season, right? Power rankings, then we'll look at our matchups, let you guys know who's going to win and who's going to lose, so you don't even got to worry about watching, because we'll just call it for you. And then, as always, it's the Pizza Party Palooza. You know it. I'm excited for it. Are you excited? Are you excited? I'm like bubbling over here. So
I can not only feel the enjoyment of like the first snap, whether it's Jared Goff or if it's Patrick Mahomes taking it. I've already got that, and then I've also just got like the taste of pizza in my mouth. So I don't know. It must mean I got something coming to me this week. So
I like it. Hey, let's get right into it. You do got something going on.
Let's not wait for a moment. Let's jump in. Yeah,
that's right. Let's jump right into this waiver wire, man. You were looking at a few of these top pricey acquisitions that people made here. What are your thoughts on some of the more higher end spenders that we saw?
Well, so Ben, you pulled out your checkbook this week, I see, and you got some talent though. I'll say first and foremost, you picked up Isaiah Likely and dropped Tutu Atwell, $100 bid, which might scare some people, but for me, Mark Andrews has, for whatever reason, been missing practices for a while. And you know what? Isaiah Likely finished actually as tight end 26 last year. So you can't, on a team where Mark Andrews is already on that team, I'll spend $100. I'll give that move a thumbs up on that one. Nick, how do you feel about Isaiah Likely? Just a good stash? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a stash, right? It's not something you pick up and you expect you're going to start right now. But if Andrews is out or is down, I think then he is instantly a very solid start. So
and then you paired that with the Deion Jackson pickup, which Zach Moss is out. Evan Hall, who I believe you also drafted, could see some snaps there too right away with Zach Moss being hurt. And as the season progresses, it gets a little iffy. JT might even work his way back in, which that's a whole headache in itself. But this could work out. But I don't think $65 was probably I would have gone a little cheaper in my opinion. But hey, if it works out, it works out. So, and then the last one I wanted to talk about before I'll let Nick get into some of his, Sean Tucker, Jordan Rasky bidding $55. Let me just say, Rashad White was pretty decent in his rookie year last year, but he didn't really carve out himself a role into that offense. So I don't think he's going to be taking over the full workload. And if anybody's going to steal it from him, it's Sean Tucker. I kind of didn't know a whole lot about him until I did some research on him just recently, and he probably could have been a round 3 or round 4 pick, even though he was undrafted. But without that medical condition, I think he's got that talent to possibly even dethrone Rashad White throughout the year as the RB1 in that offense. So that might be the steal early season here. Nick, how do you feel about Sean Tucker?
I feel upset about it, Cole. I this was like the player I really want. I didn't expect everyone to be going so hard. Just like right off the bat, it's like you guys had draft picks. Why didn't you draft these guys? Like what the hell? You drop $100 on it, you could have just drafted them. Uh, but yeah, no, Sean Tucker was on my radar. If I had third round picks or fourth round picks, I was drafting him. I had him rated high. I thought at one point I was like $5 bid. Nobody's gonna be bidding on these guys. We just like you're cutting down. Apparently not. So good on Jordan. I think it's a great pickup. I hate you.
Can I just say, I feel like in this last 6 months, I've been trying to turn my game up, and I've tried to been making some moves and trades and getting a little more fantasy skilled. And can I say that, gosh darn it, our league mates are getting better too. You son of a
For
guns.
real.
I mean, a lot of these picks, I feel like are I would have done them. I would have done them if I was paying a little bit of attention. But I really I missed the ball on them. So
Yeah, and those were the big ones. Those are the ones that people really drop money on. And I like all of those guys. All of them can definitely provide some value. And there's some other ones that are a little bit cheaper that I think also, can contribute. I'm just going to rip through them. I'm going to rapid fire these ones here. Devontae Parker could be the New England's number one, so that's an instant depth piece. Solid pickup, and Taysom Hill is a question mark that you're never going to know when to start. So get him off your team and don't stress about it. Jake Ferguson picked up by Jordan. Very solid pickup. Dallas's starting tight end is always good. But the question is, how long is it, Jake Ferguson? Is Schoonmaker going to come in? Is it God, I got someone else on there too. This is gonna kill
I'll
me.
hit you with it later. Yeah.
Yeah. Ty Chandler, pick up by Tyler, for $10. Back up. I mean, he's got room on his bench to have a depth piece that if Madison goes down, Ty Chandler is instantly viable. Baltimore for Ethan. I like it. They have a juicy matchup, especially in week 1 going up against Houston. So that's a good week 1 start, if nothing else. Tyler Boyd, sure. Josh Reynolds, sure. I don't know. Hey, I was looking at this. Josh Reynolds was wide receiver 69, so nice.
Solid.
Seattle Seahawks. They're playing the Rams, so a solid week 1 start. And then a couple of guys for me. Demario Douglas, Parker Washington. I do not expect anything from these guys. I just needed people to put on my taxi squad. Demario Douglas has actually gotten a little bit of hype in terms of possibly being like a starting slot guy for New England. It's just he's kind of got to compete if Juju is spending a lot of time in there. Only reason I knew his name is because he was on Peter Schrager's like breakout list. So I was like, okay, I don't know anything about him. So, and then Parker Washington, no idea. He's a rookie that was drafted medium high. So, cool.
It's always good to have some darts.
Yep. And then Zach Evans pickup is cool. That works. Those are the big ones. Everything else is just kind of other little things going on here. Anything else you want to talk about with those?
Peyton Hendershot was the tight end for the Cowboys.
There it is. Yeah. So they got 3 of them, and you don't know for sure if one of them really is going to be locked in.
Right, and there's decently high draft capital in Schoonmaker, the Schoon Man. So he could probably, by the end of the season, really be their tight end one.
Yeah. But that's the waiver wire. That is week 1's waiver wire. It is always an exciting time out there. And I got to say, just before we get into this, we've been having a lot of discussions about increasing the roster size and like stuff like that. I love absolutely love our roster size because there are guys out here on the waiver
Yep.
that you can actually make moves. And yet you're not going and like picking up a guy that's like a locked in, week out starter that you know for sure, but they could be, right? Whereas like if we increase the roster size by 1 or 2 players, that's 20 more players out of there. And like the waiver wire is going to be non existent and you are not going to give two S's about it, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
You will be locked into the trading only phase of Dynasty, which I have not experienced personally, but I can say you need active traders to do it. And if people aren't constantly working on trades, you're kind of just you're stuck how you draft every year, and that it can be good for some people that draft well, but some people that make some mistakes with their drafts that could be quite cumbersome to try to fix over the years. So
Yeah. No, so
I love it. Yeah.
I agree. But let's get into people made these waiver wire actions, so we're kind of locked in. We got to look at what people's teams are going into the season. So you know what that means. It's preseason power ranking time, Cole. And we don't got Phil with us, so it's just you and me. Lock it, just a 2-man power ranking crew. Let's just run through our consensus. We'll try to pump through these quick. Just a couple quick comments on everybody. And wouldn't you know it, Cole, you are our consensus #1 in the power rankings. How does that make you feel, big guy?
I want to say I was happy right away, but now I'm like, okay, how is this going to go sideways? So, no, very happy to receive the ranking. So why did you give me? I think you gave me a 2 in yours.
Yeah, I put you at #2, and honestly, I just look at your starting lineup, and I have no issue with anyone in your starting lineup besides question marks with DeAndre Hopkins. That's the only one I have question marks with. But you can swap him out anytime you want for Mike Evans, Cortland Sutton, Jahan Dotson. Like, I just think you have a good team this year. You got some old fellers that are not going to last long, but this year I think you have a good team.
I appreciate that, and I do think the top 3 or 4 teams are really close in terms of how strong their teams are. The one thing I'll say about my team, and then we'll go to the next team in our rankings. I do feel like I added quite a bit of depth to my team, something I really lacked last year. But once again, the negative thing with that is like then you get to the point where like should have started him. Nope. Should have started. Yep. Should have started him. So I'm looking forward to a better season, but I'm also dreading the craps coming up soon here.
Oh yeah, those start-sit decisions start to get real stressful.
Yeah.
But that's the price of being on top, man. But right behind you is Ben, and
Current champion, co-champion.
Ben, current co-champion, who was my team I'm afraid of, and I've followed that up and went and gave him my #1 spot. But you're a little bit lower at #5 in your rankings. What are your concerns about Ben's team?
My concerns are not players' talent, but mostly opportunities in their offense and bad offenses. So let's go through. I'm just not even going to highlight the good things of your team yet, Ben. I'm going to just point out the reasons why you weren't a #1 or #2 in my rankings. Which Deion Jackson starting, that's the Indianapolis Colts. That's a bad offense. That's a rookie quarterback. There's going to be trouble. I would love to see high production there, but I don't feel that's where we're going to get in the beginning of the season. Arizona's been just dumping players with James Conner. I don't see a great season profile. He is the #1 running back in that offense. Nobody's really going to fight him for that, but I just don't see. And I believe they announced Nick. I think Dobbs is that. Who did they trade?
Dobbs.
Josh Dobbs is now starting for Clayton Tune. So, and he's only been part of the team for how many weeks? I really feel
about
like
2.
Yeah,
Real locked in on the playbook.
I really feel like Arizona's throwing their whole season away. And if anybody wants a part of that team, good luck to you. I'll root for them, but I just don't see how that actually turns into a good fantasy value. And then the last little bit, Debo Samuel and George Kittle. The only problem I have with that is just you're a little too weighted on a team where Christian McCaffrey is probably number one, and then it goes Debo, and then it goes maybe Ayuk, and then it goes Kittle. So you have maybe 40% target share in an offense that doesn't throw. They're high performing and they're lots of touchdowns, but that also means high variance. So you're going to see great weeks and terrible weeks. So I mean, if they can somehow flip flop it and you're always getting a consistent basis from them, then I disagree with myself. But I've seen too much of Kittle. I've seen too much of Debo Samuel. They used to both be on my roster to know variance is arriving. But otherwise, solid roster. Solid roster. Lots of young players too coming up. A great trade you just did too for Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow stack that might make you unbeatable a lot of weeks.
Dude, the other thing, he's got Marvin Mims sitting on the taxi. That guy might get promoted at some point. Right?
I tried trading for him today. It did not go through.
Ah, yeah, there it is.
Yeah. Great team, Ben.
And actually tied in the number 2 spot based on our consensus is Joe. You have him up at 2, and I have him at 4. And I'll dig into this one just because see, Joe somehow with finishing third to last year.
Yeah.
I think.
Or was it second to last? It might have been second to last.
No, it was Ethan.
Oh, Ethan was second to last. Yep.
Yeah. So Joe was third to last year. Gets that number 3 pick. But like I think at the start of last year we had him as like the number 1 or number 2 team, and then this year he's very high again, tied for 2, because this roster is so good. He just was beat up with a bunch of injuries last year, and he had picks this year too, right? So you just look at his team and it's loaded with talent. The one qualm that I have is this is A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert all on a team. I like every one of those players. If you want to bet on an offense, Philly is a great offense to bet on. But it's going to be – you might have some highs and some lows, right, with that happening. So maybe move some of those around. I tried to get a little 3-way going on between myself and Joe and Tanner to kind of mix things up a little bit. We didn't get it done, but Joe can get some trades going, kind of mix some of that talented up. And if he does that, I think this team gets even more scary.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's last year we saw Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle perform pretty well on Ethan's team as 2 threats on that offense. I don't think this is a bad move, but I do worry, like you said, like it's just too many eggs. So, I mean, if for whatever reason Jalen Hurts regresses this year from his amazing year last year, you could be middle of the season trying to pivot and trading some of these players away. I do think you're going to have to do that eventually, but hey, if you want to ride it out, they were great last year. So, I mean, I picked the Eagles to do pretty well this year. So,
yeah, it's is 3 is company or 3 is a crowd here? We'll find out, But with that being said here, Joe, you are still locked in up top at number 2. We do enjoy your team. And number 4, then, since we had a couple ties up at the 2 spot, is Tanner. And
co-champion Tanner.
Yeah, co-champion Tanner. I have him at 3. You have him at 4. Tell me about Tanner's team, Cole.
Well, we just got off of the Eagles, so leads with Jalen Hurts, who has that goal line play that's just going to give him a baseline of 20, 25 points every game, it seems like. But then he follows it up with amazing wide receivers here, CeeDee Lamb, Chris Olave, and DJ Moore, 3 wide receivers that could finish in the top 10. And if your team has those, you you could easily be another co-champion or champion this next year. Nick, how do you see some of the other positions there?
Yeah, I actually really like Brandon Ayuk. I'm pretty high on him, so I think having him as like a depth wide receiver piece to even throw in at the flex. And he's got some other guys still on the bench here that can contribute, like Khalil Herbert, Brian Robinson, Jonathan Mingo. Like these are all guys you can start. Same with like Hollywood Brown, and who knows when Jonathan Taylor gets figured out. So he's got depth. He's got a good team. I mean, it's why he's at 3 for me. It's good. It's a good team. And the thing is like, so we total up these numbers of based on our rankings, and you're solidly the one between the two of us. But then the next 4 teams, we have only like a point difference between how we scored them. So these teams are all good, and getting into that next team, Phil is right up there with them at number 5. And he's my 5, your 3. And I think the reason I have him down a little bit is the receivers. I mean,
Mm.
great quarterback, great tight end. Kelsey apparently just a bone bruise and is questionable for week 1. So maybe Kelsey's all right and he'll play, and isn't out for a super extended period of time, which would really help fill out. But yeah, it's just the receivers for me. Christian Watson, I like, but we still don't know for sure how consistent he's going to be. And then he's also starting Cooks and Smith Schuster, which is just like, yeah, could be all right, but I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, your concerns are warranted, and that's why he's not at the very top of our rankings. Obviously, in the mix of the better teams in our league, but with Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey. But yeah, there's question. I mean, the running backs are locked in. He's got Eckler, Mixon, Gibson as a flex is really nice, and then he's got Madison sitting on his bench just in case something misfires there. Um, but yeah, you're warranted on these wide receivers. They're all kind of RB2, RB3 potential on the year. Maybe Watson breaks out. He's a little banged up right now, I believe. He might not even start this week. Cooks, we haven't seen him in this offense yet, but it will be most likely he'll be a wide receiver too, and he might end up having a pretty good year. But until you see it, you really can't bet on it. And then Juju Smith-Schuster, same thing, new team, haven't hasn't seen his role really carved out for him yet on that one, and I don't want to put a lot of money on it, but man, he could finish in the top 10. Oh man, that's a stretch. I'll take top 20 on that one. So yeah,
I was like, ooh,
there's a
there's a hot
yeah,
take.
no. So but he's got Jerry Jeudy on his bench, who it will probably be a starter in the middle of the year
Yeah,
after he gets healed up, and then also Jacoby Myers. I think he'll be a plug and play in certain weeks here too.
I agree. And then we get down to the bottom half of our league, down in the cesspool where it seems I reside. But let's talk about Jordan first in our 6th spot. He is your 6 and my 7. So
You want me to I don't want to make you talk about yourself, but you did tie, I think, in our
Oh, okay.
consensus
Yeah, no,
with
that's true.
Jordan.
Yeah, so I'll be up next. I don't want to talk about myself, so I'll jump into Jordan's team.
Okay.
Jordan's made a lot of moves that I really really like. Actually, I should have Jordan higher. I don't know what I'm doing. I ripped through these
Yeah.
3 minutes before the show. Jordan should be at like number 4 or 3 for me. I don't know. Jordan, you're higher than this, but you could take the 6th spot. I'll be 7. We're not tied. Yeah, his team, he's got that nasty stack with Jackson and Andrews, and then young talent, right? A lot of young talent. Bijan, Garrett Wilson are kind of locked in, like we think are going to be awesome. Drake London, I don't know, he's the Kyle Pitts, Atlanta, Drake London. What the hell is going to happen? Who knows? He's great. but so was Kyle Pitts, and who gives a shit, right? I don't know. Um,
Arthur Smith
Tyreek,
certainly doesn't care.
yeah,
So
no, 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 no. Who's the third tight end? He's going to lead the tight ends in targets. Miles Sanders could be resurgent. I like it. And then he made the trade for Tyreek, which was a very solid trade. He had the draft capital, and Tyreek, like we talked about, should be good for another year or two, minimum. You know, he said he's
minimum.
retiring after 3, right? So, uh, and then he's got Sean Tucker. So fuck you.
On that note, yeah. So the thing about Jordan's team, and we saw it last year too, he lives and dies by that Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews stack. Now they both got banged up last year, so that affected his team. But if they start producing at a higher level with their new offensive coordinator, with their new offensive weapons, that team could roll, and Jordan's team could easily be the talk of our Week 4 power rankings as he's number one. Like I think he was number one last year in Week
He
4.
was. He
So
was like 4-0. Yeah.
yeah. And what we saw early too last year was Miles Sanders was carving out a decent role in Philadelphia's offense. Now he's on a new offense, so once again, there's a bunch of question marks. And this is why he's ranked lower for me, Nick. I see question marks all over. So Lamar, Mark Andrews, yes, they're talented, but what's that offense look like? Yeah, we're about to find out, and I'm excited for it, but I don't know. And the same concern that you had with Drake London is just the concern that any wide receiver or receiving threat in that offense has is when we're going to stop running the ball so I can catch some things. So,
Yeah.
and beyond that, Najee Harris, I can't say I dislike Najee Harris, but I just don't see him being a 20-point week fantasy running back. He might be a 10 to 15 his whole gosh darn career, which is fine. You're not going to lose a lot of weeks like that, but he's not going to win you any weeks. So it's that paired with he's got some good depth on his bench, I will say. So if any of those question marks aren't answered correctly, he's got some other question marks he can substitute in and maybe have himself, honestly, a top 2 or 3 team by the end of the year, if not the number 1 team if Lamar and Mark Andrews actually show their true potential.
I agree. But with that said, on to me in the 7th spot. I don't want to talk about me.
Sure.
Why don't you do it?
Yeah, I'll lead us off. So I'll just go through. I'm going to rip through them as you usually say here. So Trevor Lawrence, awesome. I'm a huge fan of him this year. Josh Jacobs, huge fan. Kenneth Walker, a little nervous about the Charbonnet edition, but still, I'm betting on Walker this year. Amon Ra, great. DK Metcalf, great. That offense is only getting better for Seattle, to be honest, and they added plenty of weapons to continually improve that side of the ball. And then you have Amari Cooper, who I do think Deshaun Watson's going to tear it up this year. I've gone back and forth about 4 times. Now I'm pro Deshaun Watson. I think he's going to have a good year.
Okay.
So, and then Dameon Pierce. We've seen how effective Dameon Pierce could be last year in a bad offense, and I don't think that offense is going to be significantly better. But I do think they've made some strides to fix some things in that team. So I see him having a better year than last year. So that could be a really good player for you this year. And you've got great bench depth. So why don't you talk about some of those players?
Yeah, my bench, I've got some players I'm high on, and then some players it's like whatever. Like Deontay Johnson, I think I could throw in as a starter. I think he could easily be, he could be top 15 receiver.
Oh,
I feel
easily.
like,
I agree. Yep.
And Zay Flowers, I'm really high on. Hodgins to me is a question mark of like, he looked awesome at the end of the year, but what's the Giants passing game going to even really look like? And then a lot of my other running backs are kind of like, could be great situation. Like they're all kind of like, if the guy in front of them goes down, they're going to be great, but I can put them in and maybe hope for like 7 points if I have to, right? With like Gus Edwards, Singletary, Dillon, and Bigsby. So yeah, I feel good about it. We'll see what happens.
do see one mistake. You have not started Njoku this week, so you need to adjust that in your roster this week.
So here's the deal. We're going to give Kyle Pitts a chance. And I don't want to
Oh,
go too well. It's hard because I need to see Deshaun Watson before I start two receivers from Cleveland in a week.
okay,
You know,
understandable.
but after me, Michael, we have both in the 8th spot, and my whole thing with Michael is kind of the same thing as last year. Is just top end talent, but anyone goes down, you're in trouble, Mister.
Hmm.
And I think that's showing with like having to start Quentin Johnston, right? Of like, yeah, like he could be good, but right now he's number 4 on that depth chart. Like, ugh, I don't know, right? And like, he'll get Brees Hall back, but that doesn't fix the wide receiver situation. Like the wide receiver situation, I'm worried about. Like Devontae Parker, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Josh Palmer. So like, I like it. Like this top end talent is fantastic, and moving Chase to get Chubb and still have T Higgins is great. But there's a couple more pieces to add. Just like this is me like season long projecting. I just think any injuries to any of these top guys, and it starts to look scary.
Right. Yep. And I agree with you. I do think that trade that he made for Nick Chubb actually was a really good trade for him.
Mm-hmm.
It did give him a little spread out of his talent, which was very top heavy with some of those players. So, which isn't a bad thing, but then you get stuck with those injuries that take you out for a whole season, and you can't just have your whole season tossed away by one player. So it's a good move. Yeah, Quentin Johnston starting week 1, that's a little scary. I think I would throw Joshua Palmer in there, but I'm glad that you do have him. That's a good backup for that situation, just in case Quentin Johnston doesn't work out in year 1 with this offense. There's a lot of mouths to feed, and I do think Justin Herbert's going to have a great year. So I'm not hating that you have Quentin Johnston here, but just bold. That's all. So, but yeah, same concerns as Nick. There's just a little bit of depth lacking, and I think you added some decent pieces that might come through towards the end of the year here. Um, I'm actually seeing a little bit of a roster violation on your team, I believe. Unless
Oh,
was Jalen Warren placed in the taxi last year? Then you not pull him off? I feel like you would have pulled him off, but that's
I
just
don't think
me.
he did. I looked at it
Really?
earlier. I
Oh,
looked and
very
I saw
well. Then that's
Jalen Warren
that's a
is still on
solid.
the taxi.
That is a
Yeah,
solid taxi squad. Can I reverse my my comment and say great taxi spot? That's a great player to have in there. So
that's right. And moving along to Ethan, locked in the 9th spot. Cole, what's up with Ethan's team?
oh boy, it's got Jordan Love right at the top. That's what's up. um, I don't know what to think yet of Jordan Love, and I would say you probably agree with that, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, mostly. It looked great in preseason, but it's preseason. You know what I mean? His games in the regular season, he hasn't looked good in the last few years. So we'll find out.
We
And
cer
if not, Packers are going to be trading some first-round picks and getting Caleb Williams. Put it on the board.
Oh boy. You know how much I'm going to hate that if that actually does happen.
God,
I,
that'd be fantastic.
I think the Cardinals got that already, so too
Yeah.
bad. So they're going to trade. I agree with you. They're going to trade Kyler. But no, back to Ethan's team. You do have Derek Carr. If Jordan Love for whatever reason doesn't pan out. Um, but no, I do like. He's got some good running backs. I do like James Cook. I think he's got a potential to be a top 20, top 15 running back this year. Uh, you've obviously got Jameer Gibbs, who's going to be a significant chunk of Detroit's offense, and we'll find out soon. We'll find out tomorrow if that is the case. great wide receivers. Jordan Addison's probably going to be a day one contributor on the Vikings. Nick, how are you feeling about some of these other players?
Yeah, I'm just kind of scrolling down to look at the bench here, and like Raheem Mostert, I think could be a plug and play starter right away. Like I'd almost be tempted to start like Raheem Mostert over like James Cook. Honestly, like just right off the bat. Um, I like Mostert with Jeff Wilson being out. And then some of those other guys like Cooper Cup being out is hard. Like that, like his team is a lot different with Cooper Cup in there and being healthy and not needing to start Jordan Addison right off the bat. But his team's pretty good. Like just like Van Jefferson could be good. Like I don't know. It's
I feel
hard
like this
because
is
like we've got him this low in the
feels wrong,
rankings.
doesn't it?
It feels wrong, but we kind of saw this last year with how the league turned out. Of like, I think going into the last week of the regular season, there were like situations where like six different teams could still get the last spot in the playoffs. Like it was ridiculous. Like everyone had the same record except for like two people at the top and like two people at the bottom, and then everyone else was just like right there. So I like this. The fact that we're looking at some of these bottom teams and just being like, yeah, that team's pretty good. That's great. That's good. That's signs of a good, healthy league. Oh,
Right. And he does have some high upside for some of his running backs here, but I understand why we've got him down here too is probably because there's a lot of variance that's probably going to happen with that position for him.
that's right. And last but not least, let's get into it. We all acknowledged it. We talked about it. Tyler was at the draft talking about it himself. He knows this is a rebuild. He's in that 10 spot. It's tough to come in and take over someone else's team. And that's what Tyler did coming in here. And he's starting to get some pieces, right? That like you can see for the future. Like Anthony Richardson could be the next like Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts rushing player that you're super excited for, right? And then I like some of these like rookies that he got late, like Puka Nakua. Pookie Nakuki could be good, man. Like you know some of these. And just looking at some of his players on the taxi, like Josh Downs. You know, they spent some capital to get Josh Downs, but I don't know. I'm sugarcoating it, man. This team's rough right now, but he's got some draft capital to work with next year, and it's supposed to be a very good draft class. So yeah, it's probably a year or so away, but I'll be rooting for you, Tyler. That's for sure. I want to see you win some games, but it's rough this year. Cole, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm willing to even help if I need to trade some value away from my team to get some picks. If you're interested in some of my players, let's do it. I mean, I'll help with the rebuild if that's what needs to be done. But I do like a lot of your players you picked up this offseason in our draft. So I think your team's much stronger than what it was last year, even if we haven't seen that yet. But I think in the middle of the season you'll start seeing that with some of the scores. So
And that's the power rankings. That took up a good chunk of our episode. We're trying to condense these. We're gonna shrink them down to little bite-sized things, like little 30-minute nuggets, if we can, or shorter. But the power rankings, you know, you got to get into them. So with that said, Cole, let's look at these week one matchups really quick. Just like one line on each of these matchups. I'll read them off to you. You give me quick like one-liners here, and we'll start off with your matchup because it's what you're most familiar with. You versus Ben. Go.
all right, I think I hold my own this week for the simple fact that Tony Pollard's going to go off in game one, and my wide receivers are all going to put up 15 to 20 points. And I don't see the Steelers letting the 49ers put up a whole lot of points. So that game is going to be a lot more sluggish than I think people are anticipating. So I'll take the W. Thank you.
All right, and I will jump right in and give. I'm going to take Phil versus Joe here. Currently, Joe projected to take the W here via sleeper, and I'm going to give it to Joe because I am concerned about Travis Kelsey, and I do not know about those receivers yet. It's tough though. Eagles versus New England. They could slow New England could slow them down. So that's where the question mark is, right? I think it's does Travis Kelsey play and do Phil's receivers have any sign of life? If they do, Phil wins. If Philly is slowed down by New England, then if Philly's slowed down, Phil wins. If Phil's receivers and Travis Kelsey are bad, Joe wins.
Yeah.
Let's have you rip into. I'm doing a lot of ripping today. I gotta get that out of my vocabulary.
Yeah, that's all
or at
right.
least diversify. I don't know what's going on. Jordan versus Tyler.
I was
What do you
just
think?
looking at I was just looking at this matchup. Barring catastrophe or a hurricane possibly stopping most of these games for Jordan, I think it's just an overmatched situation. So we're gonna go Jordan's team. Even if they put up their worst performance, it's gonna be a blowout.
I agree, and I'll go into my matchup, me versus Michael. Um, I don't. I think I get this because I don't. I mean, he could switch it out. So maybe you know what? Keep Quentin Johnson in there. He's gonna do great, Michael. Keep him in. Keep him in. You go ahead and keep him in there. Uh, how about our last one, Ethan versus Tanner? What do you got?
Oh, you didn't say who was gonna win your matchup.
I will because
Oh,
actually, because no, Michael's going to because he's starting Quentin Johnson.
oh gosh, is this reverse
I
psychology
don't
where
know.
you?
I don't even
Okay,
know anymore. He could be great.
yeah. What's our last matchup here? Got Ethan
Last one is
versus
Ethan and
Tanner.
Tanner. Yeah.
All right. So this one's a little bit closer than a lot of our other matchups we were talking about. Just seeing it off the top here. Yeah, I am a fan of Tanner coming out of the gate, being a champion, winning the first match, just with Jalen Hurts in New England. He's going to get a good 20, 25 there. His receivers are all 15 pointers, if you ask me. Not to mention Ayuk in a flex spot's just ridiculous in my opinion. So, with if any of those players have a 15 or 20 point game, it's going to be a uphill battle for Ethan all Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Monday, whatever, all the days of football.
And that's right. All the days are coming, Cole. And that's the best part. Even if we win or lose, football is back. And it makes me so excited.
It's not going
But
anywhere.
it's not going anywhere. But you know what is going somewhere? Pizza to me in my mouth because it's pizza party time. Pizza party time. Uh, Cole, the pizza party has begun. We are going to be ripping. God, if I say rip one more time, I swear to God.
Just promise me that rip is in the title for this video, okay? And
Oh, oh, it will be.
I'm gonna ask I'm gonna ask Michelle about that. So make
Oh,
sure
I
she
hate it.
puts it in if you don't. So
So
um,
I just want to say quick about the pizza party. You can join DraftKings for free and just have a DraftKings account, right? And it's the competition. You just join our contest if you want to, and you're not like locked in and you have to do it for the season. If you want to do it one week, you can come in, make a DraftKings lineup, and you're part of the competition that week. Not feeling it a different week, or you forget, not a big deal. Just join the next week again, or something like that. So, if you feel like just doing it sometimes, come and join us. Let me know that you're interested. We'll get you added to the competition. And the more people that are added, the less likely anyone is to have to buy the pizza, right?
right.
So,
So the loser of the each week will buy the winner, the person that scores the most fantasy points, a pizza. Now you don't have to put any money on DraftKings. You don't have to sign up for anything other than our one league, and there's no fees or nothing with it. So, and there were times before you played fantasy football, Nick, and there were times before I played fantasy football. and those times sucked. And anytime you can add more fantasy football into your life, I think you're going to be pretty happy about it. So give it a try. 1 week, I'll walk you through it. Nick will walk you through it. It's the easiest thing. It's way easier than even doing what we're doing with this Dynasty League. This is a 10-minute job, not even a 5-minute job every weekend. Give it a try. So
I agree. And with that said, let's get into our lineups. And we're going to go through these quickly. That's another way of saying the word I won't say. My quarterback is Geno Smith at 6,100 going up against the Rams. I think that he will have a good week against the Rams, who project to have a terrible defense. And I think Geno comes out hot.
I like that take. No, I went a little bit more expensive. I went 6,900. Nice. For Justin Herbert. Miami Chargers. I do think both offenses have high point scoring potential this week, so rack them up. And then my running back, number one, I went with player from your matchup, Kenneth Walker, and from your team. I do think he's going to run all over the Rams, whose defense got significantly worse since we've last seen them.
Who's your other running back? Give me both.
Oh, both. A.J. Dillon. I swear I'm not looking at your team, but the Bears defense is another atrocious defense right now. So if you're going to bet on somebody as a running back, take a bad defense, and run the ball all over them.
And that's what I was doing, looking for that terrible run defense, and there was no run defense worse than Houston last year. So J.K. Dobbins is my running back one at 6,600. And then I went with Mr. Antonio Gibson in my second spot for 5,200, going up against Arizona, who looks like an absolute dumpster fire. And that is why Mr. Antonio Gibson gets the start for me. Going into receivers, had to get that stack attack with Geno, so DK getting that start. And really that's why. Just wanted to have the stack in the lineup. I think he'll be good, but nothing special of why I think that. Other than that, he is good. Chris Olave, though, going against Tennessee. Tennessee had an absolutely terrible pass defense. And Chris Olave is ready to pop off. And Brandon Ayuk will be my number 3 wide receiver against Pittsburgh. And he's a little cheaper right now, pretty reasonable at 4,900.
Yeah, that's an absolute steal. I think a lot of people have Brandon Ayuk this week. I went with Jalen Waddle, 7,100. That's my actually most expensive player. Yes. So if Tyreek Hill doesn't have a big game, hopefully he does. Chris Godwin against Minnesota. Minnesota's defense was not good last year, and I'm seeing a trend with all my picks. I'm picking bad defenses. So, yeah, he's probably gonna put up at least 15 points against us. And then Mike Williams with my Justin Herbert stack. Hopefully, big game potential there.
I like it. Yeah, that's another thing with DraftKings. Just like in general daily, you got to have a stack in your lineup, right? Like if you want to have like high upside, that's stack attack, right?
Stack and then have a comeback. So pick a game where you think's going to be high scoring potential. A lot of offense with throwing the ball, touchdowns, deep passes. Great setup to at least have one tight end or one wide receiver of the opposing team on that opposite side of the field, because usually they're going to need a lot of points to come back into the game. So
that's good advice. My tight end, I went cheap, but I think he could be all right. Mr. Cade Otton against Minnesota is where I went with that. With DraftKings being full PPR, I think he walks away with at least 5 or 6 receptions. Could turn one of those into a touchdown.
I unfortunately am scared of that. And then I went with Cole Kmet, a better Cole at 4,400 against Green Bay. I do think Green Bay actually kind of beats up the Bears in this one. So I feel like Cole Kmet will be the only offensive player that's other maybe than Justin Fields that might be relevant for fantasy this week.
I like it. Who'd you flex?
I took Jordan Addison in his first game as a Viking. There's some variance there, and this man right here, he's gonna make sure he gets the ball. So
That's right. Hey, you gotta put in those like wild cards from time to time, right? I have Joe Mixon in my flex in that Cleveland matchup. Um, I just think Joe Mixon goes back to getting tons of volume and starts getting touchdowns this year. So I like it. He was expensive at 6,800, but he is in. And then my defense going up against that rookie in Indianapolis, the Jaguars defense. Look, we're all excited about Anthony Richardson, but first week I'm seeing at least a couple picks, and he's going to take some dumb sacks. I think Jacksonville beats him up, and yeah.
I love that pick, and you know why I love that pick? Saxonville, baby. I got him too. I couldn't pass it up. I figured, oh my goodness, Anthony Richardson. I mean, very high graded prospect in a lot of regards, but also extremely raw talent in a scheme that was just terrible last year, an offense where Jonathan Taylor doesn't even want to play on it. I would run from anybody on that offense for at least a few weeks until we see what he actually is going to do this year. So,
hmm I agree. That's funny that that's our only crossover that we have. We'll have to see what other people's lineups turn into. I just got a text from Ben. He's coming into the pizza party, so we're up in these numbers. All right, this is great. I'm very excited about it. But with that, we it's time for football, man. The season is here. We got through week 1 of this podcast, and now football is upon us. And
don't ever leave me.
No, never again. At least not for the next 17, 18 weeks, Cole. 17. We don't care about week 18. So 17 weeks, you got me. And with that, the rest of you got us too. Stick with us. But for now, we're signing out. That's the Bog and Smog Fantasy Cast.